My reading list that I recently finished was this, 3D Printing Will Rock the World by a gentleman named John Hornick. And I really like this book, and I thought I would share it with all of you and tell you why I really like the book. A lot of what's published about 3D printing is technology-centric, how the printers work, the new 3D technologies that are on the horizon, new filaments, and so on. I haven't seen, I'm not saying it's not out there, but I haven't seen much writing about the bigger ramifications of 3D printing. And what Mr. Hornick did here in his book is he covers this in terms of what does it mean for the impact on the world of design? What does it mean on the impact for supply chains and manufacturing? What does it mean for intellectual property rights? What does it mean for job creation? What does it mean for job destruction? These are areas that these are all areas that 3D printing touches. I'll give you an idea here of the table of contents. Reinventing design, making us makers again. I love that. I love that chapter title because, you know, for a few thousand years, we were our own makers. We built our own homes, we plowed our own fields, we sewed our own clothes, and then with the Industrial Revolution, making became a more centralized, mass-produced activity. So 3D printing, we could be at the very, very tip of bringing making back into local communities. A 3D printer is ideally suited to do that because here comes someone, they want something printed for one application. It could be the home, could be a factory. You run it on the printer, and then someone comes in with a completely different need, and you run it on the same printer. You don't need to retool an assembly line or change bits or routers or anything. It's the same tool. That makes it much easier to bring making back to the community. Mr. Hornick also talks about some of the downside of 3D printing, crimes we haven't imagined yet, but they're probably going to be on their way. And of course, as I mentioned, he talks about the intellectual property issues. What if, and this is me talking, not Mr. Hornick, but strictly a rhetorical example, what if you had some old farm tractor, you know, hasn't been made in 20 or 30 years, you can't get spare parts for it, and then you find out you can get a couple of gears 3D printed, and you go get those gears printed, well, the manufacturer might say, hey, that's our intellectual property. But then again, how would the manufacturer even know? And by the way, you don't want to buy a new tractor, you just want to get the old one running. So there's this whole storm coming probably of who will own what intellectual property rights. And I think Mr. Hornick did a very good thing here. I'm going to read you a sentence at the very end, the very last page, page 233. I am certain that I have barely scratched the surface of conceiving where this technology will go or what it will look like in 100 years, but I am confident that it will profoundly rock the world. And he says, I barely scratched the surface. In other words, and I think this is why I like the book so much, this is not a book of answers. This is a book of questions. This is a book to stimulate the mind so we start asking ourselves, what will this technology mean in our lives? How will it impact our homes, our offices, our careers? Where will this be taking us in terms of job creation, job destruction, as I said? This is a good book to stimulate the mind that way. So I do recommend it. I never met Mr. Hornick. If I ever do, I'd like to shake his hand and thank him for writing such a, what I think is a seminal work to get us thinking about the right questions. So again, my name is Jack Heslin. If you'd like to learn more about what J3D does, providers of desktop 3D printers, 3D printing services and scanning, you can check us out on the web, j3dservices.com. And if you'd like to talk about 3D printing or share how you use this technology, there's a contact form there, fill it out, and we will get right back with you. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday, and we will talk to you tomorrow.